Greetings! Welcome to the ASTROLABE, a special Black Friday edition. Hopefully everyone had a wonderful Thanksgiving. It's good to see the loyalists in the chat, including Rhonda Bolin, my sweet, beloved mother-in-law. Good to see you, Gaga. Let's get some oinks in the chat for Pig Dirk. Amy says that Pig Dirk got a postcard in the mail today. Wow, lucky Pig Dirk. Pig's coming up, man. Hit the like button. This will be a relatively abbreviated ASTROLABE. Didn't have a ton of stuff to get into today, and I gotta help my wife out with the milk distribution here after the show. So I've got some. It'll be brief but good. Some banger stories, and also shout out to my mom. My mom commented on one of the streams here just recently. I didn't know that she was watching. Shout out to her if she's still watching. I don't know if it was a just dropping in moment, but it was good to see her. I don't necessarily know if I want to air her out completely if she wouldn't necessarily want to be identified. I don't know who would want to be identified with me publicly, you know. So how was your guys' Thanksgiving? We had a relatively low key one here. Had some friends over. It was there was lots of kid noise, but it was still kind of low key. Even those things don't necessarily go together. It was very good. My wife and a friend of ours made some incredible food. Absolutely phenomenal. I'm not used to. I've been in like hardcore like fasting working mode lately. I don't have a lot of time or desire appetite for a lot of food, so I don't get that many calories. I've just been kind of cramming, and and then I pigged out yesterday, and oh my goodness, I was my body did not want to have that much food inside it all at one time. I'm gonna have to work my way back up again. All right, let's get the show on the road here today. So first one here, got some slop for you guys, but this is some good slop. 8 out of 10 would listen while driving down a dirt road with the windows open. So dirty little secret, where's my millennials? Shout out to my millennials out there. Dirty Little Secret was originally written as a country song, and it actually works. It works really well.
Weird ass kind of country.
That's really quiet, I'm guessing. Let me pull up the volume here. Let me know how the audio is after I've got the volume pulled up.
The acoustic song. Like it used to swing like ding 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 ding.
Let me know what I've done wrong when I've known this all along. I go around a time or two just to waste my time with you. Tell me all that you've thrown away. Find out games you don't want to play. You are the only one that needs to know. I'll keep you my dirty little secret, dirty little secret. Don't tell anyone or you'll be just another regret. Hope that you can keep it, dirty little secret. Who has to know?
It really works. It works really well. I still like the original, but you know, that's just directly in my wheelhouse. That song is like, I don't know, early undergrad years at college is like the soundtrack of it is All American Rejects. The slop is intensifying. So two dudes launched the Talking Talk Tua podcast, which earnestly breaks down episodes of the Talk Tua podcast. Might be the best thing from the Hawk Tua cinematic universe. This is I played the like the short film of the short film TikToks of the guys doing the like surrealist stuff, and I don't know. I just dudes being dudes is awesome. The concept here is pretty entertaining. Yeah, Hawk to Exception.
Turns out Pookie's a huge believer in the round Earth theory.
I think the Earth is round.
That's a fact.
Some people think it's a flat Earth. Since I'm revealing Pookie, I also have to reveal the Pookie app.
Look, Pookie is clearly embodying the scientific culture we live in, right? It's less reliant on empirical data. It's less reliant on peer-reviewed papers. It's just more so going with your gut. Pookie is saying around Earth to him feels right. He doesn't need much data here.
And Pookie slapped the flat Earth theory right across the face when he dismissed anyone who believed in it as some people. He's not even calling them scientists, just some civilians believing in a folktale.
Now, while Chelsea also endorsed the theory, we didn't get much of a response from Haley. Seems she's still probably mulling over the research. We don't know where she stands on this issue.
Yeah, this conversation felt awfully one-sided. Until I hear from an advocate for both sides, I'm just not sure where I stand.
I can't pick a side until Haley does.
Turns out Pookie's a...
This is an interesting little content segment that has popped up, and I think a lot of people didn't necessarily realize it when it happened, which was well done by the people who were doing it. A lot of this short form stuff of a couple of people sitting and talking like a clip from a podcast, there's no podcast that goes with it. It's just, I don't know if it's necessarily the case with these guys, but what they're doing reminds me of it. It's the clip is literally made as that clip. It's not excerpted from a broader conversation, but it's performed in such a way that it makes it seem like it. The meta is we live in a deeply ironic generation that is becoming really self-aware. So you're starting to get a lot of these strange loops of metaception. Getting meta on something that's already meta. I love the fact that we have official government accounts that are just leaning right into the shit posting. The House Judiciary GOP account has popped off some bangers in the past, and they did us proud for Thanksgiving this year.
I am the chosen one. Somebody had to do it. Beans, greens, potatoes, tomatoes, lamb, rams, dog, beans, greens, potatoes, tomatoes, chicken, turkeys, beans, greens, potatoes, tomatoes, lamb, rams, dog, beans, greens, potatoes, tomatoes, chicken, turkeys, rabbit, beans, greens, potatoes, tomatoes, beans, greens, potatoes, tomatoes, beans, greens, beans, greens, beans, greens, potatoes, tomatoes, chicken, turkeys, beans, greens, potatoes, tomatoes, chicken, turkeys.
The best is yet to come.
That's an oldie but a goodie, man. And I love the House Judiciary GOP tweeted that out. If you want to have fun, if you want to be where all the fun-having people are having fun, then MAGA is the place to be. Slutty Mook says the levels of back we are is off the charts. That's right. And for further confirmation, good friend of the show, Jason Miranchuk, tagged me in this morning and said I called it. This is from the New York Post. So the actual official account for the New York Post tweeted this out. They said, "This is huge," with a man dancing emoji. This is huge. People gathered together to be part of a Trump dance flash mob on Staten Island on Friday. We're so back. And notice that almost everybody here, there's some men here and there, but almost everyone here is a woman, probably between, 45 and 60 is the majority of the ones that I saw. So New York, women between 45 and 60 are out en masse dancing to the Trump dance. The vibe has indeed shifted. Got to give a shout out to Elijah the Middleborn here. Teach your kids they can kill dragons. Your child deserves a fine wooden sword made by this man. unfathomably, unimaginably based. Middlebornarms.com. I have no affiliation with them. This is not a paid ad. I just saw this on Twitter and it was really freaking cool. Go check them out, middlebornarms.com. I think they need some of your money, and your son needs an awesome wooden sword made by these guys. So we've got another commercial. Pardon the overly effusive slop posting by Benny Johnson. We love you, Benny, but the hyper effusive emotionalism here is a little tough to swallow. But here is Apple. Apple, of all companies, is departing from their traditional advertising. Well, it's not their traditional advertising approach. It's their recent advertising approach. Suddenly, something's changed.
Got it last week. I think I know what it is. Are you serious? Guys, thank you. The color that you wanted. How did you know this is
It's an all-white family.
John, listen.
Light the fire. You place the flowers in the vase that you bought today.
Another guitar.
I'm so excited. Here you go. Haley.
Happy birthday. Look at the picture of me and you, Daddy. Look at the moon. Daddy, take away the moon. I am a robot. What is that?
See ya.
Everything is easy 'cause of
I love you, Papa.
you.
Very, very sweet commercial. We are back. Straight Buster says, we are so white and so back. When was the last time that you saw Apple? Maybe they've done this and I just haven't noticed it before, but when was the last time you saw one of these super progressive companies making an ad that, like, regardless of how cynically it's done, I don't care. I think it's obviously done cynically. But they're sending a message about what type of people they want to pander to, and they're endorsing this particular view of the world, which is one that endorses, glorifies, idealizes a white nuclear family, fatherhood. I mean, I don't care how cynically you do it, man. LARPing is praxis. I will take it. It's taken over. They can cry all they want, but they're going to bend the knee. So Google News now features a popular on X section. Mario Knopfel here says, Elon made it very clear, we are the media now. The Axios CEO and other legacy media dinosaurs disagreed. Some had mental breakdowns. But Google realized this inevitable trend, and now X News, led by citizen journalists, is on Google News. Free speech is winning. Mainstream media is capitulating. Thank you to Elon and Linda, I can't remember her last name, Yacarino, as well as every user on this platform doing their part in reporting the news and verifying facts through community notes. My suspicion, I haven't completely worked out exactly how they do it, but my suspicion is that this is less about Google News capitulating. I think it is a capitulation, but I think it's also probably there's an angle in here where they're trying to get a foothold on X and be able to try to manipulate it in one way or another. But that in itself is an admission, I think, that we're winning. I think a lot of people have the sense that that winning is something like that to win it involves everybody bending the knee for the right reason and being able to like exposit at length on those reasons, and like, you know, winning looks like everybody taking what's in their mind and transplanting it with whatever's in our mind, and that's not the case. What winning looks like is people compromising and implicitly accepting the predominance of the MAGA culture, as Tobias said up here. He said MAGA is a full package: religion, music, dance, haircut, voice cadence. It's a fully fledged culture. So on the cultural level and the policy level, any sort of concession after the way the past decade has gone, any sort of concession from these major institutions, no matter what reason for the concession, if it's like, oh, they're giving ground on this here so they can try to take ground over there, that misses the point that they're giving ground. They're backing down, and they're going to try to back down, or they're going to try to retrench. They're going to try to like re-encircle something else and use that as their stronghold, but they're being forced to back down. They're being forced into that posture. They can no longer relent. They can no longer stand against it. So they're going to make a bunch of bluster about it as they go down, but the point remains that they're going down. Thank you for the Leaf Bucks, Mr. Qwerty's Easy 7. A couple of them, he says, White Friday. Yes, indeed, it is White Friday. All right, been keeping track of our boy here. Scott Jennings got himself a new gig. Los Angeles Times adds pro-Trump voice Scott Jennings to its editorial board. We will be, the country is healing. If you recall, the LA Times owner leaned on the editorial board and would not allow them to make an endorsement in this last election cycle. And then he said he wanted to get more conservative voices on board, refashioning their media front. And here's the thing: a lot of these guys like Bezos or like these, a lot of the billionaires out there are not. In fact, very few billionaires are profoundly ideologically motivated. They're more just interested in maintaining their station and not this media station, but also their like station in life. And they're working on like looking at big projects, big infrastructure or big industry level projects. That's where their focus is. And so when they purchase a media company, their goal is not, it's not like this is a dyed-in-the-wool Marxist that wants to have a propaganda machine for selling all of his stuff. No, he just like, this is a valuable asset, and I want to be able to take advantage of that asset to try to number one, just be able to control the asset, and lots of people are subscribed to it. So I now have a product that lots of people are subscribed to, and it just happens to be that that's a media project. But then beyond that, then I want to be able to use this as an outlet for protecting my own interests. But it's much more pragmatic and much less ideological than I think a lot of people see it as. Especially in our little corner of the internet, we're all very keyed into all the different political perspectives and the motivations and the history and why they are what they are and how they all relate to one another. But most people don't think that way. Like even the elites. Most of the elites don't think that way. They think much more pragmatically. Like, it's part of the problem is that they're a little too, they're like too low time preference. They're working, they're as a society, we've lost sight of the bigger projects, the bigger goals, the bigger dreams. This is why someone like Elon Musk wanting to go to Mars stands out so much. Once upon a time, it wouldn't be that. Someone's like, I want to do this big, great, grand thing. I want to have this massive human accomplishment. Most people would be like, yeah, that's great. Let's have lots of people who are trying to get all these different accomplishments. But it stands out for us right now because people don't. We've had the idea of accomplishment beaten out of us. We've had nihilism sewed into us, and so there's that we kind of act from that natural premise. But the majority of these sorts of big billionaires are not, they're not like ideologically bought into, they're not like a Yuval Harari or what's his name, Klaus Schwab. Even Klaus Schwab, I would question just how much of a real ardent true believer he is. But for the majority of these people, they're really just trying to make a buck. Like that's what it boils down to. They're just like trying to make a buck at the billionaire scale. So when it seems as if if you think about each individual person, to them, they're the ultimate minority. I don't care how wealthy or powerful you are. You're one person, and you see the world as one person. So you could be inordinately wealthy and powerful, and you're still going to perceive yourself as a minority. And you're going to be suspicious of the masses. So even the really wealthy and powerful people, they perceive themselves as minorities, and they're suspicious of the masses. But now that it seems like the vibe has shifted, they're like, okay, well, I need to shift along with the vibe. So get me my conservative guy. And that's what this is here. You might look at it really cynically as like, oh, well, he's going to be like a fake conservative and he's there to water it down and blah, blah, blah. Maybe that's how it pans out. I still don't really know anything about him apart from he's very entertaining to watch dunking on people on CNN panels. And I do think that he's a bellwether. And this sort of move makes that case even more for me. As soon as we start seeing him counter-signal the Trump administration in any way, even subtly, like I think my guess is it will happen, and maybe it doesn't, and this will be like the true test of him. If it never happens, then great, it never happens. But if it does happen, it'll start with stuff that's really, really subtle, where he'll start, there's some sort of policy or something that someone said or something like that, and they go to get, conservative talking head Scott Jennings's take on it, and he'll waffle, and he'll sort of try to distance himself. That will be the first clue that he's here as a really is kind of a bellwether. Like he's there to try to collect sentiment and guide it in a certain direction. So it'll be up to him whether who knows who he's owned by. He's got to be owned by someone, I'd imagine, just because that's how you get to be where you are in this industry. But his career will be fascinating to watch going forward, and I think it'll be a leading indicator for the state of the broader GOP, Republican, conservative, right-wing political establishment. This will be a fun thing to look forward to. Apparently, Joe Rogan says he'll be doing a podcast with his comedian friends out of Mar-a-Lago soon, and Don Jr. confirmed he'd get Trump to make a guest appearance. That would make... If you get a Joe with a bunch of comedians, they're just like broing down there, and Trump shows up and just starts doing his thing, that's going to be must-see TV. It's going to be really, really good. But it's funny to look back on people who are like questioning whether or not Joe Rogan was going to endorse Trump. And there was like never a doubt in my mind that Joe Rogan was obviously going to endorse Trump. He was just going to do it at the right time and in the right way. And he's sort of playing this like, oh yeah, I want to get an interview with Kamala Harris, because like getting an interview with the sitting vice president is a podcast, like hell yeah. And if he comes out and he endorses Trump, well, he's not going to get that interview. So he's going to try to get that interview, and then he's going to endorse Trump at the last minute. It was pretty easy to see. It was pretty predictable. But now that he's endorsed him publicly, he's now a Trump guy. And he's now getting to really experience he's gotten some of this stuff before when like CNN changed the color of his face to make him look like green and sickly when he was talking about ivermectin. He's gotten that sort of thing in the past, but there was some European political figure talking about him in just the most insane terms. It's him being I wish I should have saved the clip, but I didn't think of it. Describing him as being like a total toady for Trump's agenda and being like promoter of disinformation, and it was like really over the top. And Rogan replied to it and was like, "What? What are you even talking about?" So it's just gonna, as with every one of these people, as soon as you come out as a full-throated Trump supporter, like as soon as you throw your endorsement behind him, you head on down a slippery slope. Like you're just going to keep tumbling down that, because all of the people who don't like the fact that he just endorsed Trump are going to spend, like, they're going to blow oodles of capital on pushing him even further toward Trump. And now there's rumors that the Trump administration is going to be not having a bunch of legacy press people at the White House press corps, and they're going to be opening it up to people, I'd imagine, like Joe Rogan, Alex Jones, Tim Pool, Dave Rubin. Like, these are the people I'm sure who are going to get press passes. So they're going to completely sideline the legacy press. And this is exactly what they should do, because the legacy press has revealed itself to be a tool of the Democratic Party. If you want to completely marginalize the party, you need to marginalize their apparatus for narrative setting, which means just freezing them out. Force the legacy press to have to get their comments secondhand from all of these people they despise. That's how you control the narrative in perpetuity. Amy says, is YouTube deleting comments if they have KILL or KILLING in them? Perhaps. I don't know. I haven't gotten a notification that someone's had a comment that didn't get posted. Usually I'll see it. It'll offer me the opportunity to hide it or let it through. But I wouldn't be surprised. Oh yeah, I forgot this story here. So I mentioned in one of the last shows about Elon saying that too many game studios that are owned by massive corporations. XAI is going to start an AI game studio to make games great again. This was on 11/27. Then on 11/28, or it might even have been 11/27 in the evening. Let me see if I can. So this was in the morning on Wednesday, and then this dinner was, I think it was Wednesday evening. Anyways, so Autism Capital posted this picture of Barron sitting there with Trump. Is it okay if I'm friends with Elon? I'll allow it, Father. And Elon replied and said, I was discussing consciousness and video games with Barron. Man, that would be a conversation to hear. I'd imagine that we're not far away from Barron doing his first media appearance. Like, maybe, like, if Barron shows up on Joe Rogan when they're there at Mar-a-Lago, it will. He almost might be better off just maintaining the mystique and not actually taking the next step. But so I said, first Barron saved our country, and next he's going to save our video games. Elon absolutely needs to bring Barron on as a consultant. I bet you he probably is. That's what he's already doing. So here's another clip, speaking of Barron Trump, from this guy, John Morgan, the big Democrat mega donor who has a bone to pick with Kamala Harris and the Democrats at large. This seems very intentional. He's here on Fox News talking to, her name just escaped my memory, former press secretary for Trump. But this seems very, very intentional that he is coming out and doing these interviews, blasting the Democrats and now he's going on Fox News to talk about it. I don't know exactly what the play is here, but it seems very intentional.
Well, my reaction is, she thinks she's Obama. She goes to Hawaii because Obama goes to Hawaii. She started talking like Obama, imitating Obama. She is not Barack Obama. She has no talent. She can never run for president again. She ran once and got 0 delegates. She got 8% of California. I begged them not to put her up. She was going to be tethered to Biden no matter what. That was a zero-sum game for her. But she thought that all these votes were for her. They were not. The votes that she got were people voting against Trump. And the votes that Trump got were the people voting for Trump. What the Harris campaign should have done, instead of avoiding Joe Rogan and podcasts, it turns out that Barron Trump, who looks like a runway model, was telling his father, you need to go on podcasts. You need to go on Joe Rogan. He was 3 hours late to a rally because he was doing Joe Rogan because that was so important. So Barron Trump is a lot smarter than everybody in the Harris. They said they didn't go on Joe Rogan, the progressives around her. You heard what Carlson said. The progressives didn't want to go on Joe Rogan. Look, if I'm running, I'm going on Joe Rogan. I'm living on Fox. That's how you change minds. They played hide the ball. They lost badly. She should go away and never, ever come back. She spent almost $2 billion. They're raising money this week to pay off the debt. If you can't run your campaign, you damn sure can't run the country.
He is cooking her. And I think the angle here is, I speculated in the past that, I said, like, who do the Democrats have now? Like, who is the focus of all their energy? Who do they rally behind? Who becomes the tip of their spear? You know, there's been Obama, and then there was Biden. There was Obama, then there was Hillary, then there was Biden, then there was Kamala. And Biden and Kamala were both like backstopped by Obama. They were really proxies for Obama. But now Obama has been completely humiliated. So there's a power vacuum within the DNC now. They're completely in tatters, and they're waiting for there has to be someone who's going to step up and strike it forward, take the lead, and redefine the future of the party. And I suspect that this is the angle that he's taking now. He's going to become much more proactive as an outspoken, kind of the like Pritzker role, sort of, where he's a donor and he's also very outspoken in talking about the direction of the party, and he's angling to be the new boss. I think that may be something that's at play here, and what he's signaling is, number one, for the sake of the future of the Democratic Party, you need to kick the progressives out of the party. We cannot coexist with them. They dragged us down. We can't live with them anymore. Kick them out of the party. And number two, move toward MAGA. Like this goes back to, I'm going to keep saying this until it becomes obvious that I'm wrong, and I'm feeling more and more right the more I talk about it. In 2028, the electoral pivot point, what everything turns around, will be who does MAGA better. With which party is the future of MAGA safer, the Democrats or the Republicans? That's going to be the debate by the time 2028 rolls around. MAGA will be accepted as the mainstream. We're already moving that direction. It's moving that direction quicker every day. It will be the mainstream. And the question will be what the fundamental premise of the debates is going to be, whatever form they take. It's going to be who is more qualified to take the MAGA mainstream perspective and carry it forward. And there's going to be the Republican side, which is probably going to be J.D. Vance, and then there's going to be the Democrat side, which might be basically saying we need, like, MAGA's great, but we need more Maha. It's going to be Maha versus MAGA, and on one side it's like we need more Maha than MAGA, and the other side it's like we need more MAGA than Maha. I think this is the trajectory for American politics right now, and guys like John Morgan are trying to get out ahead of that. So then there's a podcast that just dropped, Pod Save America, this is just all the insufferable Obama bros. Dan Pfeiffer sits down with Jen O'Malley Dillon, David Plouffe, Quentin Fulks, and Steph Cutter to talk about the campaign's roadmap, the voters they most needed to win over, why they fell short in the end, and what Democrats should do differently next time. I am definitely not going to be listening to that, so I'm grateful to this guy, Caesar, for, he says, I listened to this so you don't have to. Long-form interview with the heads of the Kamala campaign. Actually, you should also go listen to it if you're interested in where the Dems' heads are at right now after 2024. I'll post some of my takeaways below. This thread is a huge white pill. So he's relaying the points that they're making. He's not stating his opinion here. Number one, the campaign was perfect. It's a low-key interview, but there's an air of defensiveness and avoiding criticism. Overall, it's very illuminative, but the short end of it is that these people told their story and they're sticking to it. They do not point to anything in particular they could have done to change the outcome. It was just a jump ball, and that's that. Kamala was the perfect candidate in every way. They're pretty clear about this. She receives no criticism from them that I noticed. This is more surprising than the first point. It's manifestly untrue to everyone. She could be their scapegoat and would deserve it. The way I read it is she is not going to be totally rejected by the party. Remember when Obama felt like he had to endorse her because the Clintons did? I see the same energy. Everyone's thinking it, but no one wants to be the one to say it. And if this keeps up, if this persists, my comment here is if this persists, the party is cooked. The future of the party will be determined by how long they try to hold on to Kamala Harris. Number 3, did you know it was a short campaign? They keep saying they're not making excuses, but they are. Some of them are pretty valid, but "we weren't given time" is also used as a catch-all. They don't say it, but ultimately this shifts the blame to Biden. Number 4, it's also Trump's fault, obviously. One thing they get really defensive about is going negative on Trump. The criticism against them is that people already knew Trump and they should have put their focus on giving a positive presentation of Harris instead. They vehemently argue against this. They maintain, hilariously, that they just didn't say convicted felon enough times to enough people. They keep saying they aren't blaming the media, but they are. There's anger there. Above all, that the media kept going on about how Harris wouldn't give interviews. This was totally unfair, you see, because it was a double standard. Why didn't CNN say anything bad about Trump? Number 6, men are still to blame, folks. They're supposed to be more political and like Democrats more, but they keep failing at it. Trump had some mysterious way of connecting with them, especially the low propensity. Total mystery, the low propensities. Total mystery why men won't do as they're told. Number 7, Kamala did go on all the podcasts, actually. She would go anywhere, anytime. All the ones she didn't go on were just due to scheduling conflicts. You know, it was a short campaign. She was totally stoked to go on Rogan. Kamala is fearless and confident in any space. But also the podcasts were inconsequential. Going on Rogan at all would not have made any difference in the race. Podcasts didn't play any role in how Trump was secretly able to target men. Those men have to be reached by Democrats, but it's not possible. They must just love Trump because they stink. Number 8, the efficacy and credibility of the Trump is a criminal and insurrectionist and fascist narrative is totally unquestioned. It's bulletproof. There is no way it will not convince you to vote against Trump if you're not already being mind controlled by him. It's not a perspective, it's scientific facts. It's not that disagreement is wrong. There is no disagreement. There are normal people that obey Democrats, and then some people that like voting for criminal insurrectionist Hitlers. The question I would pose to them would be, were there any voters who were well informed about the criminal convictions in J6 and the former Trump officials and all the other stuff you think is pertinent, who were not in a Trump personality cult, but who voted for him anyway, considering the charges and allegations against him false? Astonishingly, I think they would say no. Number 9, there is a desperation for the Republican breakaway vote. They consider these voters to have been absolutely key to all of their recent election victories. That's why they maintain campaigning with Liz Cheney and that whole crew to have been exactly the right move. It's interesting. They think campaigning with Liz Cheney is good because it gets them access to these Republican breakaway votes. Well, what this tells you is how they actually perceive those Republican breakaway voters. They think, like, they have this caricature in their mind of what Republicans are, and so they think that Liz Cheney is someone that those people are going to like, rather than being abhorrent and nobody likes her and they think she's annoying. These people just have a completely broken model of the world around them because they don't know anybody outside of their own little bubbles. But they don't see the far left as expendable either. Their position is that the party must and can satisfy both. They noted there are Senate seats coming up in 2026 that absolutely hinge on the Republican breakaway caucus. So they see the Republican breakaway voters and the far left as both non-expendable, and they think that they can contort the party into some sort of a shape that will satisfy both of these people. From the Republican perspective, this makes the actions of the never-Trumpers even more egregious than I have held them. I'm starting to think this is the correct take. I have some hope that this contingent will weaken as the power of the lib media is breaking. In my view, this is a cohort made up of people that are informed primarily and equally by both CNN and National Review. It's a luxury position mostly held by people that are comfortable enough that they think they do not have skin in the game. The good news is the price of eggs does affect them. The bad news is they easily forget that fact. Number 10, Trump's advantages are all unique to him. This is repeated often, and the effect is, don't worry, no other Republican will ever be able to do this to us again. It's hard to know that particularly they are referring. It's hard to know what particularly they are referring to, though. It sounds like no other Republican would be able to be convicted of crimes during the campaign and it not hurt them politically. That's true enough, but that fact would only be good for them if they plan on lawfare against all opposing candidates generally going forward. Maybe they're just giving the game away. If they wanted to pretend that the lawfare is legitimate, they would admit that Trump's unique strengths, being convicted of crimes not harming him politically, are paired with his unique weaknesses, being convicted of crimes. I guess the implication could be that all Republicans are actually criminals and they just need to find the crimes. All right. A more compelling case would be that what is unique to Trump is that he is especially likable, authentic, celebrated, and trusted. But they can't say things like that. And I do think that the implication that all Republicans are actually criminals and they just need to find the crimes, that's how they actually think. In these people's minds, being Republican is equivalent to being, you occupy the same social status as criminals, you just haven't been convicted yet. It's really a politically detonating, it's self-detonating to hold a position like that to your political opponents. Unless you're immensely powerful by some strange state of nature. And very clearly they're not. 11, if they'd had more time, remember that the campaign was short. The Puerto Rican vote following Garbagegate would have won the day for the Democrats. They just didn't have enough time to spread the news in the community that the joke had been made and that it needed to mobilize. Dems have always owned kitchen table issues. Kamala was so perfect at speaking to them. Dems in general should make a return to talking about kitchen table issues following Kamala's leadership in this space. Number 13, climate change didn't come up. Abortion barely came up. Number 14, the trans ad seemed effective, but actually it didn't change anyone's vote. The Harris campaign was right not to respond to it because that would have distracted from central issues. The ad was dishonest, of course, which is why it's so frustrating that the center of it was a clip of Kamala Harris clearly stating her position about taxpayer-funded sex changes. Classic dirty trick by the Caesars and Pouncers. The ad was also of racist intent because it was blasted primarily in urban markets, clearly to target black men, aka the white men of the BIPOC verse. It didn't move the needle with black men, it just made it impossible for the Dems to move the needle to the correct place for black men, which is totally different. And really, that ad was an economic message rather than a cultural one. It's stunning just how retarded these people are. Not this guy. He's lampooning them. The people he's talking about, who are the actual like Obama proxy cultural flashpoints for the establishment shitlibs. These are profoundly stupid people who can be thrown into paroxysms by simply saying no to them. But for whatever reason, we spent several years just not saying no to them. And now people are saying no to them and they're spazzing out, which is just going to mean that people are going to keep saying no to them because they're like, you guys are weird spazzes. Number 15. Later in the interview, there is some divergence in perspective, which was the most interesting part. One perspective was that Trump leaned into machismo by going to UFC and into podcasts and stuff, and that was his appeal to men. But Dems should not take from that they need to do the same thing. Why that would be something to avoid is not clarified. Rather, the men who are attracted by that kind of thing will be attracted also by kitchen table issues like prices. Fortunately, Dems will now be going back to their dominance of kitchen table issues, so this shouldn't be a problem. That from Steph Cutter and Jen O'Malley. Number 16, the opposing view came from Quentin Fulks. His contributions to the interview were by far the most interesting. The next couple will be from him. Number 17, men don't like men that apologize. Trump doesn't apologize. Democrats are constantly apologizing. There is a culture in the Dem party of scoring political points off other Democrats by demanding they make an apology or bow to a shibboleth. The purity tests are ways for individual Dems to boost themselves in the party. This is all obviously all true. Part of this is like, if you listen to Democrats talk about Democrats, they sound like Republicans talking about Republicans, like when they're dissatisfied with them. So they have this perception of Democrats constantly apologizing, and I don't know where that comes from. Oh yeah, Democrats are always apologizing. Like, source? Can I see? Number 18, the Republicans in 2024 were strong online. Their stuff reverberated throughout X, TikTok, and YouTube. He called it an echo chamber, but what he's describing is not an echo chamber. It's just success online. Number 19, we're losing the culture war. Said first by the interviewer Dan Pfeiffer, then repeated by Fulks. While the Dems stuck to legacy media and talking points, Trump was popping off on X, on podcasts, at UFC, roping in actual cultural figures. The arsenal of legacy corporate celebrities that supported the Dems were useless. The legacy corporate media was useless. Number 20, that paired with a perspective, though, that the Republicans are lockstep. It blew my mind, but these people really see our side the same way we see their side. They see Republicans as totally unified, homogenous, always on message, trapped in an echo chamber, always propped up by the liberal legacy media, and Republican voters as totally reliable to turn out unquestioningly. And here's the thing. They see Republicans this way, so it is absolutely in Republicans' interests to allow them to have that perception. Which means you should not fight about stuff in public. Oren just had a great stream on this. It says a day or two ago, he said, I'm not mad, I'm not angry, I'm just disappointed. They perceive that this is, you don't do the legwork for your enemies. If they perceive us this way, then allow them to continue perceiving that way and feed into that perception for them. No, we aren't like constantly being split up by a bunch of inane factional disputes. We are completely united in total lockstep, and there's nothing you can do about it. 21, my big takeaway questions. Will the progressives allow a long-term pivot toward the center? The marquee issues of the Dem Party for decades have been climate, abortion, LGBT, and victim politics, racism, and sexism. What's going to happen to those? In one sense, they've been screwed by 2024 because they were all pushed out of the spotlight, except arguably abortion. On the other hand, the movement to push them out of the spotlight lost the election. Which way will the Dem Party go? Who is to blame? Kamala 2024 or Kamala 2019? All of the other points touched on are under the umbrella of that question. Folks' insights are alarming. If the Dem Party as a whole is able to recognize that it's losing the culture war, they have a shot at getting back into the fight by pivoting. But can you imagine? Let's cancel the Pride events. A little climate change is okay, maybe not DEI. Moreover, can you imagine their base letting Dem leadership do it? This train has momentum. The inter-party cannibalization culture they've created for themselves is a death spiral, forcing them to get more and more radical and farther away from men and from kitchen table issues. I think this whole thread is just a massive white pill. Because even if they do accept that they're losing the culture war and they need to abandon those things. Well, if they decide to abandon all the culture war planks that they have held them together, they're booting off the radical left, like the progressive side. They're going to be booting them away. So then they have to decide, is it worth, like, are we going to take the disaffected Republicans and boot away the leftists? Okay, well, I'll take that trade. Move toward... This is moving toward MAGA. And I think really like that's what the next Democrat Party is probably going to be, is essentially just the party of neocons. It's going to be MAGA versus neocons. Like that's all the you're going to get like neocons and disaffected DeSantoids who are going to angle, I think, toward the Democrats and try to take on the Democrat Party and take over all the infrastructure. Basically like the Barry Weisses of the world. And so I think from a real realpolitik perspective, it'd be very good if the LP could suck in all of the progressives. Just pull them in, pander to them, give me more Chase Oliver nominations. More guys like that. And just split the anti-Trump factions into the LP and the Democrats. Ensure permanent Republican rule. All right, so time to do a little victory lap. New York Post. Jamie Dimon has been secretly communicating with Donald Trump on White House agenda for months, according to sources. Who told you so? Now, obviously, I can't take exclusive credit for this because I was not the first person to observe this. I saw the video of Jamie Dimon at Davos shaming people for being so hard on Republicans, and that I said, well, hello there, something's going on with this Dimon fellow. And then I started talking about it. People connected me to Phil Gibson, Mr. Sue, on Twitter, who got me connected to Tom Luongo, started listening to Tom, started talking to Stormy, and learned more and more about Jamie Dimon, and realized once you zoom out far enough, you can really see the players on the board moving around, and it became very, very obvious that Jamie Dimon is very much aligned with Trump's vision for the world, which makes him, while not necessarily, he doesn't have to be our friend, just an enemy of an enemy. And him acting in his own self-interest actually by proxy worked out very well for us. So there was lots of hullabaloo about, oh, Jamie Dimon wants to be in the Kamala Harris cabinet and stuff like this. People were sending over, they're like, ha, 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 look at that. Look at that. Your guy, he's actually a Kamala supporter. You guys are fucking retarded. This is very, very obvious. Donald Trump has been secretly communicating with quote, man crush Jamie Dimon about White House agenda for months. JP Morgan Chase CEO Jamie Dimon has been communicating with Donald Trump in recent months through secret back channels, helping the president-elect hammer out a policy agenda before and since his decisive White House victory, the Post has learned. The 68-year-old Wall Street titan, who like 78-year-old Trump grew up in Queens in New York City, has acted as a sounding board for the incoming commander-in-chief's economic manifesto, four sources close to Trump's transition team said. One GOP insider said the president-elect's inner circle held a series of no-holds-barred conversations with Dimon, who at the time was rumored to be eyeing a government job himself. It was very clear that Dimon was never eyeing a government job. Like, I don't know why he would take that sort of a demotion. They've been speaking regularly for months, said another GOP source briefed on the situation. Three of the sources close to Trump said the secret back channel focused on plans for cutting government spending, banking regulation, taxes, and trade. Now, this shouldn't be surprising to anyone, really. Like, the dude who is the king of Wall Street, the face of commercial banking, like, obviously he's going to be closely consulting with the presumptive, like, new president. The president who's made it very clear that his interests are aligned significantly with Wall Street's, and especially in opposition to Wall Street's enemies. So, like, this really shouldn't be newsworthy. But it is, because too many people have a silly Saturday morning cartoon logic perspective on the machinations of powerful people. A company insider added that Trump's top aides set up the calls, which continued after the election, to, quote, create a bit of daylight between the two men and stop details of the exchanges leaking. A spokesperson for the Trump transition team declined to comment. A JP Morgan spokesman also declined to comment. The quietly cozy relationship between Trump and Dimon has flourished despite the banker's cryptic and tight-lipped tendencies when it comes to politics. Trump had floated Dimon's name as a possible Treasury Secretary pick in June and later claimed he'd won his White House endorsement, despite a lack of any public statement from Dimon to that effect. Trump and Dimon also have continued to talk despite bouts of tension, including on November 14, when the president-elect declared on Truth Social that Dimon, quote, will not be invited to join his cabinet. The banker promptly shot back, I haven't had a boss in 25 years and I'm not about ready to start. See, here's where they're trying to frame your perspective of this, that this is like a bout of tension. He shot back. There's no tension here. He's like, there's rumors that Dimon is going to be in his cabinet, and he's like, nope, he's not going to be, because both of them know that taking a cabinet position would be a massive demotion for Jamie Dimon. And so Dimon's just making like a sort of a self-deprecating sort of joke about it. The JP Morgan CEO, a registered Democrat who declined to back either candidate in the White House race, had even reportedly toyed with the idea of joining a Kamala Harris administration, but then ruled himself out of leaving the Wall Street giant when her poll numbers tanked, the Post previously reported. On November 22, the Post broke the news that Trump was also consulting with BlackRock CEO Larry Fink, a major Dem donor, on policy issues. Nevertheless, the former Apprentice star's admiration of Dimon, who has held into JP Morgan Chase for nearly 2 decades and has a net worth estimated by Forbes at $2.6 billion, was described by one source as a man crush. Another individual close to the president-elect said Trump greatly appreciated it when Dimon, an avid reader of the New York Post, told CNBC in January the eventual election winner was kind of right to criticize illegal immigration and weak defense spending by America's NATO allies. That was the clip there that got me digging into him. Dimon's comments angered left-wingers within the Biden administration, who then blacklisted Dimon from the White House in a fit of pique, as the Post exclusively reported. 2 weeks ago, the JP Morgan boss said Trump's threat of slapping tariffs on Uncle Sam's major trading partners will bring people to the table if done wisely. This is, you got to understand, when you have someone like Jamie Dimon talking about something like Trump using tariff policy this way, when he says it will bring people to the table if done wisely, this is a full-throated public endorsement of it. You got to read between the lines here and recognize what's being said. The fact that he's weighing in on it and being affirming of the idea is a full-throated endorsement. Dimon, a vocal critic of current U.S. banking rules, recently slammed the onslaught of red tape drafted by Dem-backed regulators, launching a foul-mouthed tirade over a list of his most hated pieces of legislation at a recent conference in New York. Quote, "It's time to fight back. I've had it with this shit," Dimon told the stunned audience. The JP Morgan boss singled out regulations aimed at keeping banks resistant to financial storms by forcing them to hold more capital on their balance sheets. The proposal, known as Basel III, would see major lenders raise that emergency buffer by 9%. Things are becoming unfair and unjust, and they're hurting companies. A lot of these rules are hurting lower-paid individuals, Dimon said on October 28. Dimon, of course, they have to mention his compensation, who pulled down a salary of $34.5 million last year, urged the U.S. government in his annual letter to shareholders last May to deliver effective policymaking, issuing a warning that a politician's dream is a businessman's nightmare. And again, reading between the lines, someone like Jamie Dimon weighing in on politics in this way is a resounding, what's the opposite of an endorsement? A resounding condemnation of the existing administration. Wells Fargo analyst Mike Mayo said Trump's second term as president will present, quote, "the biggest inflection point for banking regulation in 3 decades. This is Jamie's vindication," Mayo told the Post. He's looking at all the bureaucracy and red tape and saying, enough of the regulatory theater. It's like banking with one hand tied behind your back. Mayo added that Trump potentially taking an axe to stringent banking rules, quote, "should mean borrowers get better rates for their loans and better services for customers." The top analyst said it would be foolhardy for any administration not to hear Jamie Dimon out. Everyone should at least be consulting him for ideas. The revelations that Trump has sought advice from a kitchen cabinet of Wall Street bigwigs comes after his appointment of staunch loyalist and hedge fund mogul Scott Bessent as Treasury Secretary. He's been hunkered down at his Mar-a-Lago resort in Palm Beach building his team for his new administration. Trump's move to seek informal counsel from titans of American finance who are outside his MAGA inner circle could provide further reassurance to investors ahead of his second term in the White House that kicks off on January 20th. So I just have to say once again that we told you so. All is proceeding as we have foreseen. Now, speaking of Tom Luongo, he just Pete just dropped a great conversation with him that you guys absolutely need to go listen to. And here's an excerpt from it that I wanted to share with you guys. Pete tweeted this out. He said, "This is most likely the reason Tom Luongo's recent speech to the Mises Institute is being memory holed. Because of their religious doctrine, they want to end the Federal Reserve today. Tom explains why this religious doctrine of end the Fed will allow globalism to win once and for all."
And one of the points I made, which I want you to talk about right now, is that all this end the Fed bullshit, if you ended the Fed tomorrow, the globalists win. And,
Yes.
and they don't realize that. So why do the globalists win if we end the Fed tomorrow?
The globalists win if we end the Fed tomorrow because this is a war between central banks. This is a war of the future of money. And like it or not, this shitty money that we're all using is right now the dominant mechanism by which we run the world. And it's greased by dollars. We created a dollar global. We already created a global reserve currency, which is a rare thing in human existence. Matter of fact, I don't think we've ever had a global reserve currency previous to this. Not even the British pound was a global reserve currency. Let's not kid ourselves, right? Gold was maybe the closest thing to a global reserve currency. And then there's the manipulation of gold versus silver during the 19th, 18th, 19th, and early 20th centuries. That led to a lot of, right? That led to a lot of strife and a lot of everything else. So in today's world, asset prices are based on the amount of this crappy money that's floating around. So if you want 90% deflation and you want to, the globalists will win simply because if you try to get rid of the Fed, then you're ceding control over the global monetary system to them because the dollars are still going to flow. If you give it, if you give it over to the Treasury, now they can go and they can take over the federal government every 4 years. Okay. And we maximize the uncertainty surrounding the future of the dollar. So when you maximize the uncertainty over something in an economic sense, what do? You shorten its lifespan, because people buy things and they invest in things and they in order to create certainty, in order to create a sense of higher time. They want lower time preference. We act in order to lower our time preference. I'm going to put this in Misesian terms, right? We act in order to lower our time preference on what we're going to do with the next minute of our life, so we can think farther out into the future. Well, if you maximize uncertainty, because you're not sure if the dollar's who's going to be the Federal Reserve Chair, who's going to be the Treasury Secretary, who's going to be the president, this and everything else. Every 4 years, we're constantly, flipping back and forth between tight to weak to this to that monetary policy or fiscal policy. Then there's maximum uncertainty. And now that we've reached a point where all the national balance sheets around the world are chocked to the gild and levered up with debt to the point where it's either you collapse them or you reform them completely. Getting rid of the Fed now is we're not going to go back to the gold standard. I mean, gold is already proven inadequate for this level of division of labor. I'm not saying that gold is bad. I like gold. I love gold. I think gold needs to return to the monetary system, but it can't return to the monetary system. We're not going to be transacting in gold coins, folks. Like, that's just dumb. Like, we have gold come back as collateral, but you're not going to be able to move to that tomorrow. And because they'll just eat our lunch with shitty money that outcompetes good money, because you won't stop the process of Gresham's law. Gold doesn't circulate because of capital gains tax on gold. Gold doesn't circulate because dollars are shit. You get rid of the dollar, you get rid of the Fed and a control over the value of the dollar. You hand it back you're going to hand it to the European Central Bank, you're going to hand it to the BIS. Great. Now you're just handing them the blueprint for programmable money, debanking, unpersoning, deplatforming. Again, the Fed isn't our friend, but the Fed acts on the behalf of the commercial banks who don't want to be cut out of the new brave new monetary world that they're trying to build. So while central banking is evil, and it is, when you have the biggest dragon at the table or you have the biggest army on the board, you don't just, I'm going to convert those into plowshares and, say, yeah, I'm not playing anymore. Great. So you're telling us that we're all just we're just leaving us to the wolves then. Well, yeah. Well, of course, we're libertarians.
Yeah, this end the Fed stuff's got to go, man. You gotta update your political operating system. If you're still stuck on that, like you're still stuck in, 2012. It's just the elimination. So part of this stems from, I think, the like super two-dimensional Saturday morning cartoon logic of the typical libertarian who just sees statists as a single category. And so if you have a statist here and a statist there, well, they're basically the same thing because they're statists and they're different than me. It's the same as like, I was a fascist. It's the same psychology. So with that premise that like all of my enemies are statists and they're statists in all these different countries and ultimately, fundamentally, they're all working together. If you believe that, then you think that there's no difference between this central bank and that central bank. They're just statists. But as we're moving into this multipolar world, there's a bunch of different, I got another thing coming up here in just a minute. There's a bunch of different dynamics that are starting to play out that are incentivizing what we would traditionally call something like nationalism, but basically they're incentivizing nations to begin acting as unique, distinct entities because to not do so would disempower the individuals within those nations. So having a central bank digital, if you have a central bank digital currency, there's no reason for the Fed to exist anymore. All the commercial banks, they all go away. You no longer have this two-tiered monetary system where the central bank issues the currency to the commercial banks who then distribute it from there. You've eliminated the commercial banks. They have no reason to exist anymore. So this is why American commercial banks are not on board with the whole Davos World Economic Forum agenda of central bank digital currency and everything that's attendant to that, because it takes them out of the loop. So if you don't want a central bank digital currency, then you want the Fed to exist as it does right now, going to war with the European banking system to protect American capital from their insane ideas. and clinging to this retarded libertarian end of the Fed thing because you live in La La Land just makes you a proxy for the globalists. You are a globalist foot soldier if you're championing the end of the Fed thing in 2024. So I've listened to probably 15 podcasts worth of Tom Luongo lately, and he is right over the target. His perception of what's going on. I strongly encourage you to go listen to the episode he just dropped within the last couple of days of him talking with Alex Craner. He's game theoried out what he thinks is happening right now, which is it's becoming evident that the whole Ukraine-Russia war is not really a war between Ukraine and Russia. It's a war between Western Europe and Russia, and really it's more a war between the United Kingdom and Russia, which is a war that's been going on for like 500 years, at least. They're age-old enemies. And the UK have had their fist shoved up the hind end of the United States, which has its fist shoved up the hind end of the Ukraine, fighting against Russia as best as they can without implicating themselves in it too much. But as it goes on, it becomes more and more evident to everyone that the war is over. There's only one way that it ends. Trump being elected now signals that it's going to be over no matter what. And that Russia is bargaining from a position of strength. So who loses out the most on the changing circumstances here? Well, it's going to be the United Kingdom. Because the entire Atlanticist power bloc is really a coalition of different verticals who fundamentally have different incentives. You have the continental European interests. You have the City of London, which is the City of London, UK interests, which are kind of the same and kind of different. You have Israel. Then you have the American traitors, for lack of a better word, really, because that's what they are. American officials, bankers, businessmen, politicians, etc., who are working to facilitate the globalist agenda, which is ultimately about ensuring that America exists as a resource mine to fund the Atlanticist attempt to conquer the world. But the problem with them is that their marriage is only one of convenience, and were they to actually conquer the world, immediately they would devolve into all fighting with each other over who's good. Is it going to be continental Europe that rules? Is it going to be the UK that rules? Even within continental Europe, is it going to be the French? Is it going to be the Dutch? Is it going to be the Germans? Is it going to be the Italians? They're all going to be at each other's throats. And Putin has made it very clear that he understands exactly what's going on here. He's talked about the distinction between the Anglo-Saxons and the Americans in the past. And it's very clear that there's a push happening right now to ensure that Russia is forced to escalate beyond a point. They're needling them, trying to bait them into escalating beyond a point of no return to ensure they get their war no matter what. Because if they don't get their war, they can't pay back their bondholders. Because the expectation is we're going to pay back the bondholders based on confiscating Russian assets and taking control of all the natural resources in Ukraine. But if that war doesn't go according to plan, then suddenly we have no way to pay anyone back, and we're going to have to print our way out of this crisis, which is going to absolutely collapse the British economy. So with that background, there's been a couple of very interesting admissions made that have dropped here the last couple of days. Number one is this comment from the Soviet Keir Starmer.
Now, the Independent Office of National Statistics has conducted vital work on the state of immigration and found the previous government were running an open borders experiment as the ONS sets out, nearly 1 million people came to Britain in the year ending June 2023. That is 4 times the migration levels compared with 2019. Time and again, the Conservative Party promised they would get the numbers down. Time and again, they failed. And now the chorus of excuses has begun. We heard that from the Leader of the Opposition yesterday. But what we didn't hear, what the British people are owed, is an explanation. Because a failure on this scale isn't just bad luck, it isn't a global trend or taking your eye off the ball. No, this is a different order of failure. This happened by design, not accident. Policies were reformed deliberately to liberalise immigration. Brexit was used for that purpose, to turn Britain into a one-nation experiment in open borders.
There are people sitting in prison in Britain right now whose crime is that they said what the Prime Minister is now saying.
Global Britain. Remember that slogan? That is what they meant. A policy with no support, and which they then pretended wasn't happening. And now they want to wave it away with a simple, we got it wrong. Well, that's unforgivable. And mark my words, this government will turn the page. That begins in the economy, because you cannot separate this failure from their refusal to do the hard yards on skills, on welfare reform, on giving our young people opportunities, rather than the easy answers of looking overseas. Because clearly the vast majority of people who entered this country...
It's kind of surreal to see. And I think there's a number of ways you could read it. And I'm not an expert on British politics, and it kind of annoys me when I hear British people weighing in with confidence on American politics, especially when I can tell like they don't really understand just the way that American politics is. So I don't want to weigh in conclusively on what I perceive happening here, but I don't think that it's a coincidence that he and Trudeau are both talking in the same way suddenly at the same time. And my perception of this is this is like a rearguard action to try to maintain their power, and they're being forced to have to the broader Trump victory, the ascendancy of Trump in Western power is forcing them to have to adapt. Like, they no longer have the political capital to just dig their heels in and insist. And because they're just creatures of power, they have no qualms doing a complete 180 overnight and framing it suddenly as this is something that was done that the bad guys in the past did, but we're the good guys now and we're going to fix it. I don't think it's them suddenly becoming based. Hardly at all. They're snakes. You can't trust them any further than you can throw them. But I do think that the political culture has changed such that this entire Davos agenda, maximizing immigration, just exporting people from the most destabilized nations in the world and flooding them into Western nations, it's not going to continue because it simply can't. So they're gonna pivot to a new angle, and I don't know exactly what that angle is yet. I think anybody who tells you they know exactly what it is they might be guessing lucky, but I don't think anybody knows necessarily exactly what angle they're going to take. Here's a similar fascinating admission now from Boris Johnson talking about Ukraine.
We are, let's face it, we're waging a proxy war. We're waging a proxy war, but we're not giving our proxies the ability to do the job. And for years and years now, we've been allowing them to fight with one hand tied behind their backs, and it has been cruel. it has been cruel, and we need now to give them what they need.
So Boris Johnson admits openly it's a proxy war. This is cope. Okay, you got us. Yeah, it's a proxy war. And but now that we're fighting it, we got to keep fighting the proxy war, and it's not fair to them if we don't fully support them as they fight this proxy war for us. They're going down. The only question is who's going to get dragged down with them. They're sliding down the slippery slope. Yeah, no, now it's a proxy war, so but we have to keep doing it. Putin had an interesting comment on this, talking about Biden trying to escalate the war before Trump is inaugurated to prevent a peace deal.
If President Biden thinks that by escalating the confrontation, he does anything to help the future administration to go out easily out of this situation, maybe the future president will said, it's not me, it's those lunatics who were in power before me. Well, that's one option. Maybe there is a version that the current administration does everything to create more difficulties to make life as hard as possible for the future administration. Well, that's possible. But as far as I see that, President Trump, a smart and experienced person, will come up with a solution, especially given that he has gone through quite an ordeal of fighting to reclaim the Oval Office.
And then there's a number of these that all relate to one another, so let me share this next one. Zelensky, now from the New York Post, says he's willing to cede territory to Russia in exchange for NATO protection, in stark departure from previous stance. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky is willing to hand over territory to Russia in exchange for NATO protection if it means ending the war. Quote, if we want to stop the hot stage of the war, we should take under the NATO umbrella the territory of Ukraine that we have under our control, Zelensky said in through a translator in an interview with Sky News Friday. That's what we need to do fast, and then Ukraine can get back the other part of its territory diplomatically. So what we have now, we need to partially get a NATO umbrella of protection. We'll cede that territory to Russia now, and then we'll enter into negotiations to try to get it. Zelensky's comments are a stark departure from his previous stance. He vowed to continue fighting until Ukraine was returned to its internationally recognized borders, including Crimea. I suspect that Zelensky is recognizing the potential for him to go the way of Gaddafi. He does not want to get anally graped to death with a bayonet. In 2022, Putin annexed 4 regions in Ukraine: Donetsk, Luhansk, Kherson, and Zaporizhia, calling them our citizens forever in a move that was denounced by Western leaders. Zelensky hinted that the NATO umbrella would not be full membership, something Putin has long vehemently rejected, but could mean member states providing individual security guarantees to Ukraine. Zelensky wouldn't say whether he'd be willing to give up more territory in exchange for full NATO membership. No one has offered us to be in NATO with just one part or another part of Ukraine, he said. He added, it could be possible, but no one offered. He said other countries have offered to broker a ceasefire agreement between the two countries, but he seems skeptical, saying it must guarantee, quote, Putin will not come back. We need NATO protection very much, otherwise Putin will come back, he said. Otherwise, how are we going to go to a ceasefire? So for us, it's very dangerous. President-elect Donald Trump has vowed to end Russia's war with Ukraine, which both Putin and Zelensky said they welcomed. Zelensky's comments come just a week after a market shift in the Thousand-Day War, when Ukraine fired 8 American-supplied longer-range missiles into Russia, several of which struck an ammunition supply location. All our partners always look for permission from the United States, Zelensky told Fox News last week. If the United States doesn't give it, Europe will not give. Yeah. No, we didn't do it. It was them. They said it. They said it. Everyone's just pointing fingers at each other. It wasn't us. We're not the ones who said that. It was that. Russia retaliated by launching new experimental hypersonic ballistic missiles on the battlefield, a move that has allowed the Kremlin to advance deeper into Ukraine, prompting NATO officials to host emergency talks this week. Putin, who has boosted his dwindling troops with an estimated 11,000 North Korean soldiers, has also threatened to strike Ukraine's decision-making centers in retaliation. The Kremlin has made huge advances in Ukraine over the past week, taking 90 square miles in the long-bombarded Donetsk region, the fastest clip since the war began nearly 3 years ago. Putin had previously claimed the only path to peace would be for Ukraine to surrender all its territory that Russia has laid claim to and renounce its intention to join NATO. So we're seeing the the negotiations happening, and all it took was Trump getting elected, not even inaugurated, just elected. And all of the negotiations have begun apace. So part of Luongo's thesis that I believe is correct is the UK is trying to bait Russia into attacking going beyond, whether it's with a nuke entirely or just going some sort of unjustifiable escalation that makes the possibility of peace talks a non-starter. And as they game theory this out, he's talking with Alex Krainer, as they're looking from Russia's perspective, well, what is Russia going to want to strike if they seem to be very clearly aware of the fact that the UK is behind all of this. The UK are the ones dragging the US into this. And repetition of a pattern that has happened so many times already. This is absolutely their MO. Get everyone else to do our dirty work for us. But the US is now caught between administrations, where you've got some people within the administration who are like, we need to advance we need to advance the interests of our British overlords. And then you've got others who are like, this is completely beyond the pale. With Biden as a lame duck president, we can't be making moves like this. So there's a legitimate battle happening within the power brokers of the US government. So their speculation, Alex and Tom's, was that Russia would hit a British naval asset, so that they can, number one, ensure that they only hit a military target. There's no civilians involved, and they're not actually on striking the territory of any other country. So the potential for Article 5 with NATO doesn't necessarily have to be invoked. Well, lo and behold, the UK starts withdrawing all of their naval assets and bringing them back to London. Which, if their theory is correct, and I think it is, they make a very compelling case, then this is the UK essentially baiting Russia, trying to corner Russia into nuking civilians, because that's what will get them the war that they need to bail themselves out. And the question is, does Russia have the intestinal fortitude to be patient and to permit these just like gross disrespect, slap in the face, making an absolute mockery of them? Can they sustain that and wait for long enough for Trump to take power, negotiate the ceasefire, and everyone can move on? And it's become existential for the UK, because they're cooked. Otherwise, they came this close to going completely bankrupt a couple of months ago. And if they don't get this war, then they don't really have a plan B. So all of that being the backdrop to the story here makes it very interesting to see Starmer and Boris Johnson both making some startling admissions. And then I was trying to follow this story that was going around yesterday of there's all this UFO stuff. It's really kicking off. It's getting more and more prominent. It's obvious there's some kind of disclosure that's coming. The PSYOPs are on high alert. And there was this one yesterday of this very odd device, sort of some kind of weird circular drone thing at an airfield in the UK. They were just sitting there. Some pilot took a video of it. And everything that I've seen, it looks real. This goes with all these other sightings of all these orbs and all the drone technology taken off. And now there's people in the UK talking about how they're seeing these drones flying all over the place. One thing Alex Krainer mentioned is that a huge number of the surveillance cameras in the UK have been switched off for a few months now. So you can't really see what any sort of troop redeployments or assets being moved around. You can't track that through the Normally, the country is blanketed in surveillance cameras. They've all been switched off, so you can't track all of this. I'm wondering if the move that we're going to get like this is the moment of disclosure of some sort of UFO or alien thing. That this is what they're trying to release. I mean, I can't even begin to speculate how they would go about it, but I don't think it's a coincidence all of these things are all happening at the same time. And there's all these drone sightings or UFO sightings around the UK, right at the time that the US is talking about disclosing more and more of these programs. And there's strong hints that there's a lot of military technology involved in all of this. So does there wind up being some sort of false flag that happens on British soil that implicates some sort of disclosure of dark technology or cooperation with aliens or extraterrestrials or something like that? This is very speculative, but everything seems to be coming to a head in a certain sense. And right now, as everything stands, if Trump comes into office and negotiates a ceasefire between Ukraine and Russia, the UK is utterly fucked. They need to come up with some sort of a deus ex machina to get themselves out of it. Related to the UFO thing, last couple of clips I have here for the show today, and then I got to get running, is Tucker Carlson talking on the Redacted show, talking about UFO disclosure. And he has a couple of very interesting comments here I wanted to share with you guys.
You had this hearing, of course, the other day, and we're past the point. Yes, aliens exist, whatever. We have reverse engineered their craft. We have these materials. We know this now. That's on the congressional record. We have this stuff. Like, let's move the conversation beyond that. I want to ask you about 0-point energy and these technologies that I think this government has in their possession. I think it's verifiable that instantaneous travel. I think it's one of the greatest cover-ups in human history that we don't have access to this technology. Are you hopeful at all that these members of Congress, Nancy Mace and others, are going to be able to, Timber Shed and others are going to be able to pull this out of these deep programs and release it? Like, when you're in the smoky-filled rooms, what are you hearing about this?
Well, no, I'm not at all hopeful. Hopeful. I'm not at all confident. One of the members, I don't want to betray secrets, but one of the, I think this is correct, the members of Congress you just mentioned, I won't say which, pushed hard on the UAP Disclosure Act of 2022, which has never kind of been enacted. And as a result was primaried by his own party, which is, the kind of maximum punishment in electoral politics. So there is a massive, we cannot overstate the effort in place to prevent disclosure. And the question really is why. And so, yeah, these technologies clearly exist. It's not clear to me who possesses them. I'm pretty sure no one's profiting off of them. So, you can construct all kinds of explanations for why. But, everyone I've known, which is every president who's been really read into this stuff, is unwilling to disclose what he learned. And you have to ask, why is that? So I think the truth is, and I haven't gotten to the truth, but I've gotten close enough that I'm like, oof. I think it's very, very disruptive, way disruptive. It's not just that Lockheed is making a lot of money on anti-gravity technology or, we've been visited by people from their planet or whatever. I mean, I think there's more there. I mean, there is more there. So, and I'm not, exactly sure. I'm not going to speculate, but I think it's a big deal. I think it's a bigger deal than we often allow for it being.
So that's clip number one, and then continuing, he elaborates a little more. There's a little overlap between these, so I fast forward this clip to pick up where it left off.
Allow for it being, right? I mean, obviously, it's been going on for 80 years, so.
Yeah, I could literally, with this technology, not have to go to the airport, wait 6 hours, take my family with luggage. I could be at your house, and have dinner with you right now. And it's to me, it's just a massive crime that we're allowing cancer.
But can I ask you a question? So there's this process of recovering of these craft or whatever they are, right? And the so-called biologics that reside within, supposedly. And I'm sure you're aware of this. So how exactly are there so many crashed UAPs? What is that? They have the technology to, travel 150 knots underwater, but they somehow crash a lot? I mean, it doesn't kind of make any sense. They just have bad GPS or something. It's like they possess technology that defies the laws of physics, but they crash. So I just don't think that makes any sense. And what I believe is true is that these recoveries have been the result of the summoning of these craft. And that's the word that was relayed to me, the summoning of these craft. So, if you're summoning stuff, what does that even mean? You're talking about a phenomenon that exists in the spiritual realm. I mean, that's more like a seance than a science expedition, right? It doesn't make it any less real, by the way, but it changes the category.
I'm very grateful for Tucker Carlson. I think he's an extremely important voice, and I'm inclined to trust very much what he says. And if you've been listening to, there is just, like at this point, I don't really have much time for you if you are skeptical about, anti-gravity tech or 0-point energy or like innovations happening in that space. I mean, all right, you just got your head buried in the ground. There's copious places. There's tons and tons and tons of places you can go to get tons and tons and tons of information about this sort of stuff. It's very obvious that there's been deep military projects going on, going back decades, and there's whistleblowers coming out all over the place talking about all this stuff in great advanced detail. I mean, go through the Sean Ryan show episode list and listen to all the different people who are coming out here who are not like total whack jobs. I mean, is it some sort of psyop? Yeah, I'm sure it is, but that doesn't make the thing that the underlying content of it any less real. Like, yeah, these technologies exist. They've been innovated on behind the scenes in the dark for a long time. They've been suppressed, haven't been permitted out, but there comes a point where such technologies are so dramatically transformative that they're going to have to be released. And this is how all these technologies work. They start out as military tech, they get released commercially, and it drastically changes the world. The internet, that's literally what the internet was. A military technology that was created for military reasons, was so powerful, it was released commercially, and completely transformed the structure of the economy. So the idea that there would be some sort of dark technology that would change the way that we relate to physics, the way we understand physics, like this isn't crazy conspiracy theory stuff. It's actually just kind of like the way that history has always gone. Yeah, Andrew says, the demons, quote, the demons have told us that they've destroyed many alien worlds besides ours by manipulating them into self-destruction. If we don't mobilize the entire global economy, then we'll all die. That's how the dark tech gets released. Yes. That doesn't make the dark tech any less real. Like, that's just how it gets released. You have to separate the narrative for why it's being released from the fact that it's being released. There's reasons for it being released, and it's because of things like debt spiraling completely out of control, or infrastructure crumbling and not having the ability to both build up this thing and build up that thing at the same time. And it's going to completely realign the global economy. And all we're doing is we're trying to like peer through a glass darkly and figure out exactly what it's going to look like. So I got to get out of here. I got to go help the wife. So appreciate you guys showing up for a Black Friday, for a White Friday Astrolabe. Do me a favor and hit the like button. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Share the show with someone. Go follow me on Twitter at RealKingPilled. And there was one last thing I wanted to say. I was mulling on this last night, mulling this over. It's very easy for us to accept that we have been operating on faulty metaphysical software with respect to the, like managerialism and the structures of our governance institutions, that they're malformed. They're creating all kinds of inefficiencies, and we need to like throw all the waste out and realign the metaphysical structure of our institutions. And I think a corollary to that, I think that the metaphysical noise that is there corresponds to physical noise based in us, in the same way that we operate with an understanding of how institutions should work that is deviated from like the natural structure. I think this goes into the physical realm as well. We've been operating under conceptions about physics that are based on faulty understandings of reality. This is the best way I can think of to try to explain this. And I think these two things go together. Like, we're metaphysically fucked up and we're physically fucked up, and these things feed each other. And I think a lot of the release of some of this dark technology, based on the stuff that I've understood about any of it, is that it's going to change the way that we understand the laws of physics. It's going to break previously held models, which is part of the reason why it gets held back and not released right away, because it's not just like changing the structure of things, it's changing how we perceive what structure even is. Anyways, I'm kind of ranting here, so hopefully that makes sense to you guys. Do me a favor and get some oinks in the chat and hit the like button. Join the King Pill Discord, kingpill.com. Join the elite crew in there, and I will be back on Monday with another episode of the Astrolabe. Until then, be good, guys, and I give you Hulk.
They're my hero. And they tried to kill the next president of the United States. Enough was enough. And I said, let Trumpomania run wild, brother. Let Trumpomania rule again. Let Trumpomania make America